Yeah. All right. Welcome everyone to our second online open house. We are very happy to have you all here. We're gonna start off the session with a little talk from Hani, our dean, Hani Asfour, and Carlos will be there to support as well. And then we also have today a very special guest with us. We have Charmaine Souza from Palmwood. Palmwood is an agency that's working with the UAE government and IDEO to implement design all over the UAE. So we're very happy to have Charmaine here. We're happy to have Hani and Carlos as well. And we'll hear from our own students later on in the session as well. So Hani, the floor is all yours. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Razan. Charmaine, great to see you here with us. Noor, of course, and Carlos, and I see some familiar faces. Hello, Alvaro. Hello, other people. Great to see you. Very excited to tell you about how we think at DIDI, and then Carlos will show you some student work. Charmaine will tell you about the work environment and what you can expect. And Noor, who's been in the trenches from the beginning, will tell you the real story of DIDI, as she was the student president last year, and she's given the reins to Zaina, who couldn't join us today. At the same time, Noor is just one of the, I would say, co-founders of DIDI, because she's the leader of the first batch of students. So it's really important that you engage her, because she will tell you the student perspective as much as we try. Noor will have a more authentic feel for it. And without much ado, I'm going to share my slides with you so we can talk about the vision of DIDI. Those who have seen this presentation, bear with me as I go through it, because most of you have not seen it. So we call this future-proofing the next generation. Who's the next generation? It's you. Future-proofing, well, what else would you want to go to university for except to be ready for the future? And then we know it's changing so fast. I'll give you some data now on how fast it's changing and why it's a very important task of universities to make sure you're ready for the future. And also, we find that design matters more than ever. And this is the case because when you think about it, everything human is designed. And this is the interior of the Museum of the Future, which will open hopefully in the next year or two in Dubai. And we have a very good relationship with the Future Foundation. And so hopefully we'll take some classes in this building at some point. I'm working on it, so we will hopefully be involved with them. We have very good relationship with them there. So, and I would like to argue also that as we enter the fourth industrial revolution, that designers are who are going to make a change in the fourth industrial revolution. This is the key moment of change. So just look at, in case you haven't heard about the fourth industrial revolution, let's just go briefly and try to understand it. So the first industrial revolution came along with the invention in Britain of the steam engine in 1770. And then about 100 years later, with the invention and more importantly, the distribution of electricity, thanks to the efforts of Edison and Tesla, in the 1870s, electricity became ubiquitous, became everywhere. And about another 100 years later, the internet became ubiquitous. Everyone had access, well, not everyone, majority of people had access to the internet, and we moved into digitization, where labor changed from, where machines completely replaced human labor. And now we have entered the brain, if you want, the mind of the machine, where artificial intelligence, cloud computing, the Internet of Things are becoming more and more normal and becoming a possibility for replacing human thinking as well. So we have to be very prepared for that eventuality. And this is how the industry looks at it. Designers will look at how humans receive this technology. We care about the machinery and the strategy, but we also care about how humans receive it. So with the introduction of steam engine, we were able to start mass producing commodities, which are products. All of human relations shifted to commodification. And then we started asking for services, looking for things that would make the commodity last longer. And then we started demanding that these services become consistent, of high quality, of a level that actually engages the users. So we started seeking experiences. And we argue at DIDI that the next step is to have these experiences to be fulfilling, to be actually about the individual's emotions, that it takes care of each individual at every level. So think about it this way. If you own a Fitbit and you carry Fitbit, the Fitbit is all about your well-being. It's about you. It's not about the stock market or the weather or anything. It's just about you. So the Fitbit is a good example of where we're going with technology. And so if you, next time your parents say, oh, your generation is so entitled and you are so spoiled, etc., and you say, well, you know, it's not my fault. This is where technology is taking us. I'm expecting all these inventions to make my life more pampered and more comfortable and more about me. So it's totally acceptable for you to feel entitled, because that's where all these inventions are taking us. And then if you think about it, any service, product, design, experience, etc., needs 3 pillars to stand on, and most of society only thinks of 2 pillars. The first pillar is the profitability, the marketing, the business. So we have friends who are going to business school today. This is what they're going to study. They're going to figure out how to make money. That's what they're thinking. That's what the focus of their education is going to be about. And those who are going to engineering school, they're going to invent things, and they're going to get excited when actually that thing they invented works and works smoothly. So this is wonderful. And most people today look at a product from, is it making money? Is it working? But the successful companies and the future of success are those who are going to ask this question: is it going to be desirable? Do people want this thing? Do people connect with it at an emotional level? And this is where designers come in. And our drive is to make sure that the user at the end is touched by the product, that the product affects them in a way that is memorable, that is connected at an emotional, visceral level, if you want to use Don Norman's term. And so businesses are waking up to that, and they're saying, wait a minute, I don't need to think about my product making money only. Like Apple doesn't think about making money, they're thinking about making products that people fall in love with, products that they caress. Even Steve Jobs said, I want to make products that people feel like they can lick them, right? So there's an emotional connection with them. So it makes me productive, is a change in the conversation in the market, and it makes me efficient, is what engineers are looking for. And this is the power of design. We are changing the way business thinks, we are changing the way engineers think, and turning it into the user being at the core of it, and providing the user with a meaningful and purposeful experience that goes beyond profit. And in this time of Corona or post-Corona, most people are going to realize there's more to the world than profit. And it was actually profit-driven systems that made our health systems collapse, in particular in the US, which is completely profit-driven. Look at the numbers in the US. It reflects this profit-driven industry, sadly. And I think they will start realizing that they have to think about it differently. So this is very pertinent in the post-COVID world. Before the COVID world, I would give an example like this one. I'll give you 2 cars. You go to the VW dealership, or you go to the BMW dealership or the Mini dealership. These 2 German cars, although some people might argue the Mini is British, but it's actually German today. If you look at these 2 cars, they have the same price range, they have the same engineering, they have the same specs, same engine size, and all their designers were Germans. So there's not much difference between them in terms of the business, the marketing of them, or the engineering. They're pretty much plateaued at that level. So you don't make your choice based on this anymore. You don't look at the engine, because you pretty much know that they're going to be equally reliable and equally efficient and equally powerful. You're probably going to make your decision based on the experience that you have, the sense of fulfillment that the car gives you, the front end, the way you interact with the machine, the way you connect with it emotionally, and as importantly, how you are perceived, how the car reflects your value system, your loyalty to a brand, your emotional connections. This is the power of design. Design makes a difference, and it's going to increase the bottom line based on the emotion of the user, and businesses are waking up to that. The same thing with the phones. What's interesting about the phones is that they even market themselves in the same way. These are the ads of Apple phone, iPhone 11 and the Samsung S20. Look at the way they're photographing their phones. It's almost identical. Now, you can argue, well, Samsung's copying Apple. Well, maybe they are, but at the same time, they've reached the same level of technology, the same level of features, the same strategy for marketing, etc. So you're not going to choose your phone based on this, because the last time you opened that, you lost the warranty on the phone. You're actually going to make a choice on the lifestyle that it's going to provide you, on the emotional experience, the emotional promise it's going to provide. So you get my point. You're going to make choices based on how you feel about the product. And this is what designers are good at. I'm sorry, but engineers and marketers, they don't understand the visceral understanding of the user, because design and design thinking starts with empathy, feeling with the user. So don't take my word for it, just look at the statistics. This is the design value index. So if you invest $10,000 in 2003 for 10 years, you're going to make a good amount of money. It's not bad. But if you invest in a design-led company like Apple or Starbucks, IBM, Nike, there's a whole host of them, Target, I'm sure you can think of some. The value that design generates is about 230% more than that. So it's more than double the amount in that sense. So this is actual numbers, and these come from the Design Management Institute. So the power of design is that it merges technology and strategy together. And this is the way we approach it at DIDI. Because design actually humanizes technology. It makes technology useful for humans. And it makes innovation visible. You may have the world's most beautiful idea and the most innovative idea, but if you are not able to visualize it, make it visible, communicate it to others, it's a useless idea. And designers' language is visual language, and that's what we're strong at. And design makes digital experiences desirable. I've been to conferences where a robot comes around and starts asking me questions. I don't find that desirable at all. So while we can make robots that can talk, I don't see the value in that as a human user. Okay, yeah, it's a cool gimmick. Yeah, but it's not desirable in the sense I will not interact with it. I'm sure you've had similar experiences where you found something cool, but then you realized, what's the point? So the way we want to future-proof the next generation is actually very important, especially where blockchains and robots would be the norm. Now we hear about them on the fringes or in futuristic articles, etc., but soon, and if not already, blockchains and robots and AI and IoT and 5G and all of that are becoming normal. And basically, so we have a duty to make sure that you are ready and future-proof. Because we know that 85% of tomorrow's jobs don't yet exist. So how do you prepare students? How do we prepare you for jobs that don't yet exist? So you can imagine the big responsibility we have and how seriously we're taking that responsibility. So we did some research and we found some amazing possible jobs. And this is the augmented reality designer. Designer uses augmented reality to make things. Chief drone experience designer. This comes back to the desirability thing. You know, people get excited that, you know, Prime Air from Amazon can deliver things by drone, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, yeah, we can do that. But did you ever imagine being chased by a drone that's insisting on dropping a package on your head? Did you ever think about it from a human perspective, about this buzzing thing and it's chasing you and you might have some precious things in there and it's going to drop them? The anxiety that it creates is like a horror movie. So basically, someone has to think about how do you create a human experience with the drone. We're not against the drone delivering, but what is the human dimension of that? How do we build loyalty with a drone? How do we build loyalty and trust with the machines that we're working with? The same thing with all this technology that's going to be embedded in our bodies eventually. It's inevitable. So basically here we have someone who is actually thinking about how to embed and how do you communicate with those devices, like the Internet of Things conductor. And then you have all this whole field in fashion with 3D printed textiles or human organ designers. So this requires constant collaboration with medical schools. And we have a very strong relationship with Mohammed bin Rashid University for medical sciences, medical and health sciences. So hopefully one day at DIDI we'll be involved in such endeavors. And the Chief Design Officer is a role that's rising. And you know, from Palmwood, Charmaine maybe can talk about that, that the UAE government has an initiative to have a Chief Design Officer for the government and also to actually train people to become Chief Design Officers. The picture you see is of Peter Schreier, who actually was taken out from Audi and went to head Kia's design division. And he actually works as a business strategist designer, not just a designer in the back room. So he makes business decisions. And I wonder if you've noticed how about 5-6 years ago, you started noticing Kia cars and their sales going up, and they've been winning lots and lots of design awards, and cars have become desirable. They have become first choice cars. Even the Pope drives a Kia. So basically, what we have to do is to make sure you are not redundant by the time you graduate, because a machine will replace the kind of work that you do. When McKinsey tells us that 50% of jobs will be replaced by machines in 10 years, that's crazy. That's a crazy number. So what do we do? So what we call this is combinatory education. Or if you want to go to the philosophical aspect, what Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari would call the multiplicity. So we need to bring combinatory education to you, and Google has confirmed in a conference that I attended that they are looking for people with hybrid skills where they know more than one thing. I'll give you a way to explain why we are called the Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation. It's not just design and it's not just innovation. They are two together. This is the hybrid education that starts with even the name. And you know, we built a curriculum with MIT, which was ranked the topmost university in the world by QS, which is one of the main standards for measuring university rankings. We're very lucky to be working with them, and with Parsons School of Design, which is the #1 design university in the USA. And this is from 2020 statistics. And we are very lucky to be working with them. We have very strong relationship with them. We will hopefully launch some summer courses and some winter courses with them. I'm personally an MIT graduate, and there's another Professor Sajal who studied at MIT as well. So we continue to develop those relationships. So design and innovation is our DNA, as I mentioned, which is about making form and making the future together. Not just design, but design for a better world. So if we look at our DNA, we basically have 3 things that we want to put at the core of our education. Visual literacy, what every design school must provide. At the same time, we combine it with technological fluency, so you are prepared for the future that's rapidly changing. And adding a strategic proficiency, so which is the business sense, and in the first year, you're exposed to all 3 of them at the same time. And then for every course, we provide 4 different skills, which are what we call the 4 C's: the ability to conceptualize, to ideate, to come up with original ideas, and then the skill to communicate them and convey them and make them visible for others, a skill to craft them, which is the art of making and the art of looking at details and learning all the fabrication tools. So we develop a maker culture, and as importantly, the caring aspect, believing in what you are doing will improve human life and will improve the planet, to make sure it's sustainable, and everything that we do is actually thinking long term to make the world a better place. So we provide 4 disciplines, as you may know: product design, multimedia design, fashion design, and strategic design. Product design, as you know, is the world where you make things. Multimedia is where you make things for the screen. With fashion design, you make things for the human body, and strategic design is you make things that work and function in the business world, in society, and in a sustainable way. So combining them is where we find innovation will happen. So what we did when we looked at the future jobs that we researched, we realized if you study product design only, for example, you won't be ready the way we want you to be ready in the 4th Industrial Revolution to actually design a lot of the 4th Industrial Design jobs. You might end up working as a product designer, but it's missing the interweaving of different disciplines. So that's why after the first year, all of our students are asked to combine 2 disciplines together. So you can combine product and multimedia, fashion and strategy, or any combination that you want, in order that you are going into the 2nd year onwards, where you have 6 different pathways that you may choose. So they are product and multimedia, product and fashion, multimedia and fashion, multimedia and strategy, fashion and strategy, strategy and product design. And what's amazing about this is that when you start combining them, you find that these jobs that we studied and expect in the future, and many others that we don't know what they are, you are actually prepared to be working in them. So if you combine, for instance, product and multimedia, you're actually able to work in IoT furniture, for example, or product and fashion. You can do wearables, multimedia and fashion, interactive clothing, multimedia strategy, blockchain interaction, fashion and strategy, ethical fashion. Strategy and product, you can be like Peter Schreier or Johnny Ive, a chief design officer. You can work in all these fields. And then what we discovered also is that as we teach design thinking, which we believe is the key to innovation, is basically that this is how we see it. We see that to learn design thinking, you learn how to empathize, and then how to identify from the empathy the pain points of your user, and then you learn how to ideate and come up with new ideas to solve these problems that you've identified and prioritized. And then you actually prototype the ideas that you think might work, and then to see if your idea works, you get them, you test them, right? You make sure that they're working, and then you learn from that, and then you iterate. But people, what's fascinating is that what we discovered is that when we're teaching design thinking, we discovered something more meaningful and something much more fulfilling, which is basically that when we teach you to empathize, we're teaching you the value of tolerance, of accepting the other, feeling with the other, and feeling positively with the others, so you can live in their world and understand their world. And when you identify their problems, we're teaching you how to think critically and how to sort through the data and to be able to extract meaningful information. And then when we teach you how to ideate, you're discovering the power of collaboration and the art of collaboration. It's not easy to collaborate, because collaboration requires trust, it requires sympathy, it requires empathy, it requires so many things. So we're teaching you this beautiful skill, or soft skill of collaboration. And when we teach you how to prototype, we're teaching you how to communicate a very complex idea in simple terms that many people can understand, whether people who want to finance you, or whether people who want to build the thing for you, or just the lay person who's going to benefit from your product. And when we teach you how to test, we're teaching you the humility to listen and to receive feedback and to accept people's opinions and realize that you are not perfect. And to get closer to this perfection, when we teach you iteration, we're teaching you to persevere and to fight and rise up in the face of failure, because failure is the only way to move forward. And we encourage failure as long as you persevere and you learn from it. And what we discovered is that while we are teaching you design thinking, what we're actually teaching you are the life skills to succeed in life. Whether you pursue design or not, what we're teaching you are the soft skills that will make you succeed in the fourth industrial revolution, by complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity, which by coincidence are the top 3 skills that the World Economic Forum in 2020 identified are the requirements for success in the fourth industrial revolution. So it's incredible that just by learning design and design thinking, you're actually being prepared for the future and for succeeding in this new era that we are entering. So we're always being asked to do technology, to do advancement, do innovation. With design, you learn the emotional aspect of it. You learn basically how to humanize technology and how to create meaningful advancement and to make innovation desirable. It's the left side of the equation that matters, because with technology, you can do so many things, but if it's not humanized, it's not going to be fulfilling. And if it's not meaningful, it's not going to be purposeful. And if it's desirable, then no one would want it. So you want to make sure people want your innovation. And if they want it, it means you're going to improve their lives. And this is how we reach fulfillment. And this is my spiel for you. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Carlos Montaña, who will tell you about the student work that we have been doing in the past year. Carlos, do you want to take control of the slides so you can drive? You're on mute. Yeah.
Okay. No, I think if you continue, I'll just
sure. Okay.
Yes.
Just tell me next. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, let's move to the projects. Thank you very much. So as Hani was saying, well, we're building the university, and we've brought, well, we have students from all around the world. So we have people from Russia, Kazakhstan, China, Turkey, Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Tunisia, South Africa, Australia, really all around the world. And we're getting more people from different countries. And we also have staff from all around the world. So personally, I'm from Colombia, South America, but we have people also from Brazil, Finland, several people from Italy, Lebanon, and so on. So we're truly, truly multicultural. And this is very important nowadays in a globalized world. These are some of the faculty. So Hani, our dean, and these are the first year faculty, Rafi Chagarian, who is specialized in aerospace design, Sejal Patel, who is trained as an architect, but also works very much with coding and new technologies, and Mirko Daneluzzo, who is also trained as an architect, but is very strong also in product design, in the use of new technologies, generative technologies, design inspired by nature, and so on. Hani also teaches, which is fantastic. In most universities, the deans just do administrative work and they never have contact with the students. Here, because we're a small university, it's completely different. And Hani teaches the history of design in the first semester and also design features in the second semester. And if we can go to the next slide, please, Hani. And these are some of the faculty that we currently have for the cross concentrations. So Noreen is our fashion designer. She specializes in ethical fashion and design for sustainability. Mika Lehtonen comes from Finland, and he specializes in strategic design management. Jonathan Gatto is Italian, and he specializes in product design. And Renata Moraes is originally from Brazil, but also Australian, and she specializes in multimedia. And can we go to the next slide? So this is a bit of what we do in DIDI. Now, maybe one of the questions that many people ask is, what do I need to learn before going to DIDI? And probably the best answer is that we will try to teach you everything you need to become a designer and to become an innovator and to become an entrepreneur. And we'll basically guide you through several steps. So one of the important aspects is the Fab Lab, which is where we do the making, and we use some of the new manufacturing technologies, 3D printing, laser cutting, CNC routing, and so on. And we have the Fab Lab manager, who is Simone Maiocchi, who is Italian, and he's been a maker for many years, and originally with the Arduino team. And Haik Vasilen, who is also a PhD candidate and is very strong in a computer-aided design. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So this is what we do in the Fab Lab. Again, it's very much hands-on, it's very much making, it's very much about prototyping and visualizing our ideas. Next. So these are some of the first-year projects. So very quickly, it's a 4-year bachelor's degree, equivalent to all the bachelor's degrees in the world. In some countries, they're 3 years. In a majority of countries, they're 4-year bachelor's degrees. And in some countries, they're actually 5, but this is a 4-year bachelor's degree. And in the first years, we learn the design fundamentals. So it's a common year for everybody. And we learn the basics of visualization, of drawing, model making, and prototyping, and so on. But we don't learning as in the traditional, let's say, art schools or design schools, just drawing for the sake of drawing, or even copying, live drawing, or so on. We do these drawings for the sake of thinking. So here, for example, these drawings are actually a study of systems and understanding different systems and the relationships between the parts of those systems. Can we go to the next? So these are, again, some of the different visualizations in the first semester. This is part of the studio. Next, please. And we've also done external projects. So some of the previous drawings that you saw that were developed in the first semester were even used by some local companies for some of their designs. So this is Silsal, which manufactures these porcelain ceramic cups, and they printed some of our students' designs last year. Next, please. We also do several collaborations with industry and with the government and with other institutions. So this was basically a collaboration with Herman Miller, where we designed chairs. And again, this is all done by our first and second years. So this is one of our current students, Mohammed Bazim, and the idea of this chair was a bit of a rocking chair, but a new way of seating in a way. We exhibited all these during the Dubai Design Week, and we have many partners. So we've collaborated with Vitra, with MBRU, the medical university. We're doing a project with Expo for some costume design for the opera. We've worked with Dubai Courts, etc., etc. With MBRU, we're developing a very interesting design for health project. So last year we had the design for health bootcamp, and this year our students worked around with solutions around COVID. So we actually also joined a hackathon conducted by MBRU, and some of our students' projects were among the finalists between projects from professionals and around 400 participants and more. So we're really, really developing some very interesting collaborations. Noreen Next, please. Noreen is working on the design for, with the students, of course, working on the design for opera costumes for Expo 2020. Next. And these are some of the exhibitions that were done. This is actually GITEX in the Technology Week, where some of our students' projects were showcased. Next.
And you can see Noor there, actually. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the next one is our workshop. So basically, we have 3 different types of courses. The first is the studio, which is the, let's say, the core, where we design the big projects. The workshop is where we learn the technical skills, and it's a 3-credit course. And the other courses are the lectures, where we understand the theory behind the things. So these are the workshops. This is the workshop in the first semester. So in these workshops, we start to learn about materials, we start to learn about manufacturing processes, and we start to learn about how we're able to use different technologies to visualize our ideas or to actually explore and develop new ideas. So these are some of these materials, well, balsa wood, foam, and so on. And these are initial explorations of form. These are polystyrene balls, but they're basically clumped together. And again, these have a whole thinking process behind them. Again, it's not just manipulating a material for the sake of manipulating it, or it's not sculpture. It's actually taking digital technologies, scanning certain shapes, and turning them into other technologies, basically to learn all the possibilities that 3D scanning and generative software provides to develop new designs. This studio is called the Ecology of Form. And there's, again, manipulation of different technologies, different software, and also exploration with many different materials. Next, please. And also, in many traditional schools of design, the first years are only like pencil-based or hand-based, and students are, let's say, obliged not to touch the computers. But we believe that technology is a very strong tool. So from the beginning of the course, we actually embed technology. So we teach game design, we teach coding, we teach 3D printing, and so on. So these are some games designed by the students to visualize some of the ideas. And then we did this exhibition in the foyer of our building where people from outside would come and basically play with the different games that our students designed. Next. This is also working with Grasshopper and generative technologies to develop or very quickly manipulate different forms, and how we take let's say, those digital designs and we fabricate them. And the next part of the project, or some of the small elements that you see. So some of these textures we can make in different ways. So by layering, and basically we laser cut the different layers of the texture, or also by CNC routing, and basically we mill the different textures and so on. So basically it's around the Fab Lab and about learning all the technologies and all the tools that we have for fabrication and for communicating our ideas. This is a very interesting project, which is basically the development of bioplastics. So one of the things that we like to teach our students is that we don't need to rely always on other people to make our ideas a reality, but many times we can also experiment and do other things. Like, for example, traditionally, chemists or manufacturing engineers would develop some new materials, but why not designers developing these new materials? Why not developing more environmentally friendly materials. So this is where we play with bioplastics to develop and test new materials. Next. And this is part of the studio and different ways of prototyping and visualizing. So this is actually form studies by using foam and cutting it with hot wires and so on. These was based in some of the previous drawings and the studies of systems. So here we were also exploring interlocking shapes. This was this year by Mariam, one of our students from Cuba, and there she actually made some almost like a Lego-like structure that can be assembled in many different ways. Also again in foam. And these are also part of the workshop of the ecology of forms. So basically taking some of these forms that were generated digitally and then trying to 3D print them and visualize them. And in the second semester, in the workshop, we also start teaching some of the basics of programming, coding, and electronics, and we use Arduino. So this exercise is called a Shake-a-Bot. And basically, it's about interactions and how we interact with products or with things, or how products or things interact with us, these robots. So these are actually small robots, what we call symbiotic creatures that interact either with the environment or with people, and they react to proximity or sound or light. And next, I think that was a video. These are some of the other Shake-a-Bots or RoboPets, where we integrate the knowledge around coding and around Arduino, and also about mechanisms and simple mechanisms, scissors mechanisms, and so on. Again, because we are trying to not be a school of art, but really educate designers that have a very strong knowledge in technology and that can develop some of the mechanical or functional aspects of their designs. Can we go to the next? Thank you. So these again was one of the exhibitions of the projects, and here we have what we call the little RoboPet Zoo, where all the students had their robotic pets, and people could come and interact with the pets. And in the back, we see some of the samples of the bioplastics and also some of the studio projects. Next, please. So these are other examples of studio projects. So this was by Shama Almula, and they were basically wearable soles for feet. So what is the interactions with the feet, or how can we create new experiences for people? And it was basically an exploration of the senses. So this is this is the first year studio where we develop prosthetic devices, but not prosthetics as in the traditional sense, like for medical purposes or amputees or so, but more in a conceptual level of how we can enhance the human body. Next. This was another project, the flavor mask by Sana. Sana was actually trained as a medical doctor prior to studying with us. So she brings very interesting knowledge from medicine. And here she experimented with smell and taste and how to confuse the different senses. And she also did a very interesting exploration with thermochromic paints that basically change colors with temperature and so on. A really interesting project. Next. This is Alhan's porcupine. So again, how to create new experiences or how to enhance the sense of touch but basically in your feet, and how to, when you walk, and basically those bristles touch elements, it's like feeling the vibration in your feet. And this was Abdelrahman's Mashima, and he was basically exploring different positions of the body and so on. Next. Okay, this is a project by Nikilesh and Annabella. They worked together, and basically what they were trying to do here was to enhance vision. So the idea behind this was that by wearing this element, the silver elements are mirrors. So the mirrors were positioned in a very controlled way, where you looked and you would start seeing from different angles by using this wearable. And this was a project by Essen and Rana Murad, which was basically a vest to hear your inner body. So basically to get in touch with your own self, and through these headphones, like hear your vitals and hear your heart and hear your stomach. So it was the idea of getting in touch with yourself. Or this project by Maha and Philippe, which was basically about the sense of balance. So as you can see in the back photograph, well, it was a very heavy wearable, and it had some sand and it had some inner tubes. So according to the movement, the sand would move, and this would create imbalance in the body. So in this case, it was more a prosthetic device to actually stop some of the senses, or control some of the senses. Next. And this was actually this year, the previous semester. This was a project by Yang Kai, and he basically was exploring the sense of smell. So even thinking like looking at elephants and so on, but what would happen if we could smell different things simultaneously? So like tentacles that can smell different things at the same time. Next. And this was a project by Mariam Lambert, which is basically like a skin. She was very inspired in origami and in triangulation of surfaces, but also in armors. So it was this idea, let's say, of a wearable that kind of protects or reacts or keeps people far from you. And this was a project by Dalila, and basically it was about vision. So how wearing this helmet with these mirrors, it completely distorts your sense of vision, and you can see what's in your back, and from the back you can also see what's in your sides. So it was basically playing with this sense of vision. Next. This is a project where Abdulaziz was looking at blind people and how they traditionally use canes and so on. But he decided that he could probably do something similar, but digitally. So he developed this device, which basically helps blind people navigate, and it uses distance proximity sensors. Next. And this is a bit of the studio culture. So studio culture is very much about discussing the projects, about receiving feedback, and about learning from each other. And this is what we do in the studios. And when we finish, or when we do the final presentations, we usually also invite external juries, people from industry, from other institutions, to give feedback from the different projects. And this is one of the typical presentations of projects. Next. This again is another presentation of projects, and you can see Hani and me looking at Maha and Aditi, and they were presenting their vision of a future world in 2050. So we are always looking at the future, and we're always looking at designing the future. We're not doing, let's say, traditional design, looking at the past or how graphic design or product design used to work in the last century. We're always looking at how future design will be and how we as designers can create those new futures. So this was actually using virtual reality. In the little square, you see another one of our students modeling, and Tamara there is wearing the VR. And this was a chair which basically creates an immersive experience of this virtual reality, of this future scenario that they created. So they developed all the virtual reality, all the visualization, but they also developed this chair, which basically at a certain point of the story of the virtual reality actually interacted with you, and there's a tentacle that starts touching you and so on. So it's like even like 4D entertainment. Next. Again, this is very much and here we actually have Charmaine. Charmaine, can you see yourself? We invited Charmaine with for one of our jury critiques. Yeah, that's great. Next. And this was another project by Mona, Alhan, and Rafif. And it basically started with some experimentation with materials, acrylic and leathers and so on, and how they transformed. And here are some of the initial explorations, and it was a fantastic exploration of materials and material properties. But then they ended in a completely deployable structure, a structure that can be completely collapsed and carried away, and then it creates this tower. And there could be many applications for this sort of structure, like simply easily building antennas in remote places, or even taking some of these structures to Mars or to other planets. The amount of applications is infinite. Next. So again, here's some of the juries. This is the next one, please, Hani. Thank you. This is a project by Nikki, and it was one of the symbiotic creatures. So the original idea of this creature was, again, a creature in 2050, and it was a water creature that would take waste and basically eat that waste and process it and 3D print new materials from that waste. And this prototype, Nikki actually 3D printed many of the mechanisms, and this prototype actually works. So it has a mechanism with sand and water, and the syringe that actually takes the sand, mixes it, and does some small 3D prints. Next. And this is the process. So many times we rely on blogs to tell the story of our projects. And again, it's very much about the process of design and about experimentation, constant experimentation, and trying and failing sometimes, but discovering new possibilities. So this is a blog that showcases all the process in the case of Nikki's project. And here we see also some of the bioplastics and also some of the fashion design and textile projects. So again, in the workshop, we experiment with the different skills and techniques that will help us to visualize our ideas. This was a project by Noor Al-Fahim and Naif Al-Bastaki, and Noor is with us. But basically a whole new world are some membranes that could become like breathable skins for buildings, and they open and close. And this project was also exhibited in the Global Graduate Show which is a show that showcases the best graduation projects of design schools from all around the world. So last year we participated in this global grad show, and Noor and Naif exhibited and explained their project. Next. Then we have the studio. This is the product design studio. So this is a project by Sana, again, Inner Voice, and it was basically a new mouse that basically interacted with people and with emotions and with stress, and it would react to the stress of the workers. A very, very interesting project. Next. And this is a beautiful project by Nikhilesh, which is basically about proposing new interactions and new experiences. So this device actually reads colors and translates them into sound. So it's a completely new experience, for example, for visually impaired people to interact with paintings and with drawings. And Nikhilesh did all the detailing, did all the mechanisms, the 3D printing of the casing, everything. In many schools, product designers only do the cases or the form giving or the outside, and they rely on engineers or other people to do, let's say, the electronics and the mechanism. But here our students are actually also learning how to do the mechanisms and the coding and the electronics of some of these products. Next. This was by Aditi, which was a project that basically tried to respect circadian rhythms or the idea that you need to sleep. So there's studies that tell us that because of the light of the phones, or because people are just texting until very late and playing with their phones, they're not sleeping. So developing this little creature that somehow eats the phone and helps you sleep and is like a digital pet to help you sleep. Next. This is the fashion studio. So exploration again of different materials, and also exploration about collections of wearables. This is a project by Amal Al-Suwaidi, and well, there's an interesting story around it, especially around, let's say, the desert and so on, and the colors and this visual exploration. But also very interesting in Amal's project was that she literally made a new material. So the brown part that you can see, the dark brown part, is like a synthetic leather made from kombucha, and Amal did the material herself. Next. These are some other projects by Dania. She was taking the idea of the oppressed or the homeless or people with less economic possibilities, and how to maybe try to enhance this idea or use it as a strong element for the visual language of her collection. Next. And this is the fashion workshop. So here in the workshop, again, it was more about the skills, and it's more about learning to construct or deconstruct a piece of garment, learning how to make the patterns, learning how to sew them together, and so on. So they had to deconstruct a shirt and create something else, or create a new shirt with different materials. So this was one of the projects by Pavan. Next. And this is tangible computing. So here, this project by Aisha and Hur was more about the interaction of people with their pets. So they designed this little device that was basically playing with the pets and creating new interactions with animals. So it's more about the explorations in interactions, human-computer interactions, animal-machine interactions, human-machine interactions, and how we use different media for that. Sentient. This was a project by Nikki. So basically what he was trying to do was also to visualize interactions and interfaces. So basically he has this digital interface, but the big question was, how could he make it tangible, or how could he make it physical? So here was it, he's interacting with his hand, with the computer and with the camera, but it's also basically being visualized by the lights. And data aesthetics. So these are several projects where people were basically visualizing data, either digitally or in an analog way. So they basically took different data sets from the internet, from world wars, or from different events, and visualized them in different ways. So the project on the left, it actually had a physical element that had some layers, and then it had a projection, and this created like a whole event in the space, versus the one in the right, which is a digital visualization of data. And this one is also more of a physical visualization of data, but basically here, physically in 3 dimensions, they were visualizing some data from different countries in the world. And in strategic design management, we do a lot of strategic design, which is in many cases service design, the design of new services or new experiences. So in this case, it was taking the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is the 9th Sustainable Development Goal, which is basically about improved transportation. So it was visualizing new ways of improving the transportation systems through apps and through different services. Next. This was another project which was basically around dates and date farming. And it was very interesting because even they did some tests with us, with the professors. So we had to eat some of the dates, and they took some of the pits and ground them and were experimenting, creating new beverages with the ground pits and so on, but basically creating a new type of service and a new type of business around the idea of dates and farming. Next. And
thank you. Yeah, thank you, Carlos. This was a very nice survey of the kinds of work that we do. I hope the people attending got excited by what our students do, and that's why we actually call them superheroes, because we truly believe that what they're doing is quite unprecedented in terms of a design education that combines technology and strategic thinking. And one thing I'd like to share with you now is what did the DIDI do in the age of coronavirus? And this gives you insight into our culture. I'll be very quick about this. You can ask us about this later. We had to think about what can we do as designers to think about it. And we got a lot of input from the students urging us that we have to work urgently. And so what we did we actually talk to the students. Like everything we do, we try to do it from a student-centered approach. And what was interesting is that we discovered that a big chunk of the population, the student population, and in fact, when we discussed it with the faculty and also the faculty population, they were basically seeking continuity, which you can see on the letter A to the left of the student in the middle. And those people wanted to not be disrupted by the corona, or they wanted to actually wait until we had more data in order to create studios and workshops for next year with more information, because right now we don't know. And on the right, we see a lot of the students saying, well, no, I need to be motivated. I can't be thinking about my studies now unless they are helping. What's the point of being designers not being able to help? And this is the section B, which is on the right. And then there's a group who were in between who said, basically, I'll continue doing what I'm doing, but I want to engage with the community. And so I don't want to belabor this, but just so you know, we had a comprehensive approach. Carlos was one of the people who ran the Agile Factory on B1, where we converted some of the courses so they're directly related to solutions for the pandemic. We made our lab accessible remotely through different techniques and methods, and we allowed students to convert any of the work they're doing into pandemic-related solutions. And on the other side, we allowed students who didn't want any change, didn't want any disruption, to continue working on what they are working, and the blue boxes around them showing which faculty is actually supporting them. So basically, our superheroes, this is the alphabet that they did in the past year. So they combined design with all these different things, whether 3D scanning, deployable structures, like we saw with Alhan, Mona and Rafiq's project, gamification, holograms, Internet of Things, and the list goes on. It's alphabetical, zero waste being the Z word, and DIDI. So we call this generation Pi, because they are actually deep in two fields, and they are able to work and empathize with work across divisions. So basically, they can blur boundaries by reaching deeply and reaching across different scales. So they look like the Greek letter pi, and when these superheroes are able to weave together all these design and life skills, they can solve the world's wicked or complex problems. And by planting their feet like superheroes with their pie-shaped skills, they can firmly plant their both feet in the ground, be adaptable for the future, to be able to generate and get new jobs, and better yet, create their own jobs. This is our belief, and this is our promise, and this is our mission. Thank you so much for your time. I give the floor back to Razan, and I thank Carlos, my colleague, for telling you about the student work. I hope this was interesting, and I would stop sharing now. Razan, all yours.
Honey, and
Yeah.
and we're
moving to Charmaine, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Carlos.
No,
Charmaine
I was
from
just
Palmwood.
Prompting that Charmaine has been waiting there. And
Okay.
it's
I know. I just wanted Razan to be the MC.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
No worries. Alrighty. So we're going to move now to the career portion of our open house. So Charmaine, are you there?
Okay. Yes, I am.
All right. The floor is all yours.
Okay. So my presentation will be around 20 slides, and I'll make it short and brief. And then if there are any questions, any of you want to ask, we can see how we can take that forward. Just give me a second. I'm going to share my screen. Let's get you out here. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So a quick brief on what I do and the company that I work for. I'm Charmaine, and I've worked with a company called Palmwood, which is a collaboration between the UAE government and IDEO. When we look at the government, we look at an institution which is centuries old in different parts of the world. And when we look at IDEO, which is one of the leading consultancy companies and design companies in the world, some of us may know them by their products. So for example, some of your parents may know them by the Palm Pilots that were created in the last century, and a few of y'all will know them by the Apple mouses that were created. But there have been several designs, whether that's in the form of product, whether that's in the form of services that have been created by IDEO. And one of the questions that may be coming to your mind is, why would a collaboration like this look like? And the reason for that is we had the Minister of Cabinet Affairs and the Future, who is His Excellency Mohammad Gargawi, who basically was looking at the environment that we live in. And this was pre-COVID, but I would say it's even more important right now, is looking at radicalism and extremism at our doorstep. The world is changing drastically and quite quickly. And so he was like, we need to be able to have new forms of thinking, new forms and new skills to be able to look at how we govern, how we live, what are the skill sets of the future, and how we make our decisions for the future. And hence he looked towards creative problem solving, which is where he brought in the conversation with the Chief Creative Officer of IDEO, who is Paul Bennett. And Paul Bennett was a person who has been in design for several years in his life. And he said, we are able to look at design not just anymore in terms of products or in terms of services, but design has the value of empathy, which is what Hani was talking about. And because designers tend to have this strength of empathy, they are able to look into the darkest spaces and shine a light over there. Figuring out, for example, is designers coming together, even now design students coming together and saying, how can we as people who have these different skills that we have learned, whether in 1 year or in 2 years, be able to actually create change within our communities here in the UAE using design? And so coming back to Palmwood, our main mandate, we've been around since late 2017, and our main mandate has been to elevate the creative capacity building of the nation. Now, when you say that, people usually ask, why would something like this be important? And if we are looking at the future skills, just like how Hani was talking about it, at that point, I think it was quite future forward for us to be looking at creativity and looking at the index of creativity and how that can actually enable different societies to be better. Now, I think it's a super critical skill, and all the work that we have done till now has finally come to culminate into something that is pretty critical and important for the next days to come, especially in 2020 and then in 2021. So in terms of the work that we look at is, how might we have designers, the public, policymakers all come together to create society and solutions for society. And no better time than right now to be able to implement all that we have learned in some ways and contextualized in the UAE for the last couple of years to bring it into force in today's world. So the two ways that we look at it is, when it comes to design, it is from a point of power, right? You need to be able to have someone who advocates and sponsors it. And in this case, it is the government. So it's a top-down effect where policies help affect change within societies. And you also can't just put those policies on communities, but it is being able to co-work and co-create with community to be able to understand how would they see their lives changing? How will this policy affect them? And hence, what is the change or design they want implemented in their communities and in their lives? And so when you have both power and empowerment coming together, you're absolutely able to see and affect change much quicker. Our main values at Palmwood is curiosity, creativity, and co-creation. And this is a little bit of a side story as to how I joined them. In 2018, I was looking for, I was working as a designer, and I didn't see I wanted a more meaningful and a more impactful life. And so I took a bit of a sabbatical and I traveled around the world. One of the reasons for doing this is I realized that a lot of people around me had this fear of not knowing what they wanted to do in life. They wanted to make a change and affect change in their communities and in themselves. But at the same time, they were risk averse, which is possibly the place that you're in right now in your life. And the usual focus in terms of what should we do for the future in terms of career skills could be, become a doctor, become an engineer, become a lawyer, do an MBA over a period of time. And for me, it was being able to understand that if society and if communities, people are able to be more curious in their lives, they would be able to be a little more calculating in their risk taking, to be able to change and figure out a different path, at least be able to take a slightly different path, to be able to see where that could go rather than taking the road already taken. And so this is where Palmwood came in. I ended up meeting them, and then I got to join Palmwood, which was absolutely perfect, because when I look at the story of how Palmwood came together, it's the idea of getting the strengths, the unique strengths of two different worlds coming together. IDEO was built and is very famous from the West Coast in the US, and the palms, which we are known of over here, the desert palm, and the UAE and the Middle East are known for certain strengths. It is about resilience. It is about hope. It is about figuring out what life could look like in a desert and building the place and the environment that we live in today. And so when they came together, the idea was to co-create change. And so in regards to this, I will take you through three distinct stories. The first one is how might we get the 60 plus and the elderly in our communities to be in a more inclusive society. And so we worked with the Minister of Community Development, where we actually played with the elders, right? We took them into the fold rather than saying, we have an idea and an answer for you. The intent was, let's get them to tell us what they think of their lives. And we workshopped it with them. Couple of things to know is that they don't think that they're that old. We are the ones who actually put them in that age bracket. Quite a few of them are quite agile and would not like to be dependent. And so what we realized, we were designing by using empathy, we were able to realize that we weren't designing for the elderly, but we were designing for us, ourselves, and what we would look like in 10, 20, 30 years down the line. So for example, one of this, if you can see on the right-hand side, was an idea that came in from the elderly during the workshop. And their answer was like, why is it that a youth hub looks really cool? Why can't we have a cool looking elderly hub where our grandchildren and others want to come and enjoy the space and interact with us? And so by doing that project, we were able to help decision makers to affect change through policy, where there were 9 different focus points in an elderly's life. So looking at whether it is finance, whether they want to start another company, whether it is healthcare, and hence how that could work out for them, and how affecting change in terms of policy would be able to create a better life for them. Now going to the little ones, the Minister of Food Security, who is doing a ton of work right now, considering the framework we are in. This was last year where she came in, and the conversation was, she said was, we can look at the food security here in the UAE, but at the end of the day, if our kids are eating junk food, how would we be able to change their well-being and affect change in terms of their food habits? And so the way that we reframe it is, how might we increase the food curiosity and the creativity in schools for kids, right? And when that happens, this is, if you may see on the right-hand side, is Her Excellency Mariam, who is the Minister of Food Security. And so we took her into the space with the students, with the children, to understand what they saw were possible solutions for themselves. One of the answers for her was, how can we get kids to aspire to cook or to understand about food? And the simplest way to do it in some ways was create a minister's kitchen, right? So someone that they could aspire to and they could see as an option. So for example, have more food cooking recipes online. If you look at Arabic, part of our research was that we found out that in Arabic, there is no word as chef. And when you look at that as from a cultural perspective, kids wouldn't aspire to being a chef because that's not in their environment as such. And so how can you create these kind of different avenues? Get maybe an Emirati chef to talk to them, get them to see recipes, allow them into the kitchen to be able to cook and play with food so that in the future they know what they're eating and how it can actually be nutritious for them. Because when we look at food science, it is moving far more rapidly than it used to in the past. So today you may say white of the egg is great, then it's the yellow of the egg, now don't eat egg. And so how can you be able to get kids to be curious about that? And so we did different kinds of ways of getting them to be tempted. One of them was the idea of make your own burrata salad, right? And that could be in the form of several different other formats of having a garden within a school or in the backyard now that they're at home. Getting the kids to play with food along with their parents, who were the ministers, to understand that food can be fun. And so the third one, that was second one of our one of our projects. And while we were playing with quite a few of these different projects, we realized that there was a huge potential in the way design could affect change. And so this is a third project that I'm going to be showcasing to you all, is how can we get people within the government to actually understand the value and the skill sets of design and be able to use that to serve the people. So if I may read what's on the screen right now, it's how might we create a national movement that connects the people who serve to the people they serve. And so this was done with the Prime Minister's office, where we focused last year on creating chief design officers. This was bringing in cohorts of employees within the government who were somewhere between 3 years to around 8 years within the government or within their careers, and being able to get them to learn new skill sets of being chief design officers. We're now this year going to go into the second cohort for this. And so as we can see over here, it was being able to take them through little design sprints, understand what it means to go in terms of storytelling, ideation, prototyping, going out. If you see on the right-hand side, there is a small image of people in the fish market. And one of their projects was to actually go out into the fish market, talk to the fishmongers, understand what the problems are for them. And one of the stories that came from that empathy exercise was that the fishmonger wasn't looking to get more money. They were actually looking to spend more time with their client and be able to help their client far better whenever the client was coming to buy fish from them, which in the past, in the old fish market, both the fishmonger would cut the fish as well as he would check the fish for the person and he would cut the fish. And during the time while he was cutting, they would talk about community, about the about his client's grandkid, some other conversations would happen. Whereas the new fish market, if you'll see down in Dera, now has this separate area where you have to go and cut the fish so that there's less smell. But from a user-centered point of view, it's lost the essence that it could have had and it had in the past. And so these were the kind of work that we're doing with people in the government, in terms of building skills for themselves to be more conscious when they are helping in terms of policy making. And so a little bit of a plug and smile over here is part of our work with co-creating communities has also been to bring communities from the UAE and around the world Yes, that is will.i.am over there, if you can see him. That is to get you to know that it's not just a very serious world being a designer, but you do get to spend time with a few cool people around as well. And so we've created these little community events where we get people to interact, talk about society, how design can affect it. And so together, it's been co-creating the future. And here we are.
All right, thank you, Charmaine. Hani, Carlos, do you want to start Q&A? How do you want to take this forward?
Yeah, I think we should start with some. Well, thank you, Charmaine. That was fantastic. Oops, my dog is growling. I think we could start with a Q&A, and especially I would encourage if we have questions around student life, around what it is to study at the DIDI. We have several of our students with us today, so it would be fantastic if they can answer some of your questions. Are there any questions?
There's a question from Shahad. What are the university requirements for entry? I would defer to you, Razan, to explain that.
Hi.
Or
Hello.
Noura?
Hi, Shahad.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
Noura, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Hi, Shahad. How are you? Can I just please know what curriculum you're currently in?
Is Shahad still
Hello?
here? Shahad, are you still with us?
Hello.
Yeah, Shahad is on mute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe we go to another question.
Anyway, I can just maybe you can hear me, Shahad. I'll just give you our entry requirements really quickly. So we need a grade point average of 70% and above in your grade 10 in your high school, so grade 10, 11, and 12. And we require one English proficiency test, either IELTS or TOEFL, or MSAT if you are living in the UAE. So we require a 5.5 for IELTS, 66 for TOEFL, and a grade above 1,400 for MSAT.
Thank you, Noura. We have another question in the chat. What are some of the ongoing courses for 13 or 14-year group, or previously it was 14 or 15-year group? So just to remind you that we have several workshops which are open to everybody, and currently we're having them digitally, but please look at our website and get in contact with Razan or with Noura, or get into our mailing list, because we continuously have workshops open for different schools and for people of all ages. So please join our newsletters. How can high school students join the IDI University since we are 13 to 18? Hamdan. Razan,
Yeah, so for high school students, we, again, like Carlos mentioned, we have our workshops and a lot of our events, which give you an insight on what DIDI is like. Unfortunately, though, our programs start at undergraduate level, so you'll need to be graduating high school in order to join us for the 4-year bachelor program.
And there's another question by Alvaro who says, on second year after choosing my concentrations, can I take classes outside of it? Yes. So that's actually a really good question. And many of our students, when we tell them you have to decide your 2 cross concentrations, it's a very difficult process because they like everything. And that's very normal. And that's what we actually promote around transdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity. But basically, yes, you can take other courses. So you will take your main studios and workshops in the 2 cross concentrations that you select. But in the 3rd year and so on, some of the electives you can take from other courses. So for example, if you took product and fashion, you could take as an elective a course in strategic design management. So yes, you can take other classes outside from the cross concentrations in the future. Okay. Charmaine, maybe tell us why you became a designer. I think it's always great to have people from industry and to tell a bit of their personal story. So would you like to tell us a bit about that?
It's been quite an interesting journey. I actually decided on going down the creative path when I was 15. And that's a relatively early age for someone to make a big life decision. But for some reason, I was bent on something that would nurture my soul in those days, a little bit of an old soul myself. And then I came across design school, which was in India, where a lot of their thinking was very futuristic. And so I said, 15, let's try it out. And I went into design school, did a foundation for 2 years in fine arts. At that point of time, I didn't know it was design. I knew it was more on the creative side. And so I did foundation in fine arts, only to realize that I liked the amalgamation of art and science together, of being able to convince people about a certain point of view, whether that's through design or, in my case, it was communication design. And that journey has been quite interesting over the years because it has taken me to understand that design is not, it shouldn't necessarily be just for designers, but it actually is a life skill. In my last year, if I remember right, our faculty was talking about us not, it was in the 3rd year that our faculty mentioned, I don't want you all to anymore be communication designers. I want you all to be designers of designers. And we never understood at that age what they meant. But give it a couple of, like a decade now, you realize the value of that advice and that kind of critical thinking, where it's a hard one, especially at a young age. I think it's slightly more easier these days. I'm not too sure what it looks like in the UAE, but the UAE at the present time and how nascent it is connected to design reminds me of India 10, 15 years ago when I went to design school, and parents were frightened at that point to send their kids to design school. They didn't know what the prospects were. And so it has been fruitful. It has been an incredible journey. And I think that design is not just for designers, but should actually be a life skill which kids start at a very young age, especially in the world that we live in today. So connecting to what Hani was saying, I actually brought something up, but I completely forgot to show it. I'll share my screen for exactly 1 second. well, not 1 second, but just give me, this was just shared with us in our group chat a couple of days ago. It's a very, very new post. So it's post-COVID. It's literally 2 days ago that came out and says, we're moving from what I call a decade of code to a decade of design. And I would think, you know, by becoming designers today, that is the future thinking that you have in terms of the faculty at DIDI today, to be able to inculcate those kind of skill sets. Where your parents can 100% be able to say, I don't know whether we have parents here today or we have just students listening to us today, but it helps them to be able to understand that your kids' lives are secure. And their futures in terms of being designers, in terms of being able to provide for themselves and having fruitful careers is secured by going down the route of design.
Thank you, Charmaine. That was a really, really nice story. And I would like to highlight that one of the advantages of design is that you can work from any place in the world, actually. For me, that was the case when I was going to study design, although my father was an architect. It was a bit like, why would you study design? Why not architecture, which is well known, or medicine or others? But in the end, I studied design, and it has allowed me to travel all around the world. So again, originally from Colombia, but I lived in Japan, Singapore, Australia, Italy, and basically I've been able to do it because I'm a designer. And on the contrary, for example, my wife is a lawyer, and in many of the countries where we moved to, she can't really work because usually law is very heavily regulated, or there are different law systems or so. So if you want a career that is versatile, that you can apply your creativity, that you can innovate, that you can start your own businesses, and that you can really work globally, design is really it. And as you said, life skills, it can be applied to many, many different things. It's all the problem solving skills.
If I may,
I wanted to answer, sorry, I wanted to answer Alvaro's question once you're done.
Go ahead, Noor, please.
Adding to Carlos, adding to your point about design being something that you could do anywhere in the world, especially in the times that we're living in right now, where we may have to go into a lockdown and then work, not be having access to work. The combination of the education that is at DIDI, which is not just about design, but is looking at code and technology together, makes someone actually self-sufficient as well. So it's not just having to be able to do the skill sets and then having to collaborate with someone else and say, hey, I need this to implement this, but to be able to prototype themselves.
Thank you, Charmaine. Noor, you wanted to answer?
So Alvarez asked, what's a typical week in DIDI? So we've got 4 classes, 2 lectures, 1 studio, 1 workshop. The studio consists of 9 hours per week, which is 2 4.5-hour classes. The workshop is a 1 3-hour class, and the 2 lectures are 2 1.5-hour classes each. So it's a total of 3 hours per lecture per week. And that's just for the classes. And then you spend the rest of your time working on all the work that you have to do for that. And it is time consuming, but it's not something that, if you love what you do, then you'll enjoy every minute of it.
Thank you, Noor. And I see that we've discussed the extracurricular activities.
Yes.
Which is great.
There was a question in the chat about scholarships, so I'll just reiterate it here. We do offer scholarships for students. They're based on your grades or your high school grades and also financial need. So anyone that's applying to DIDI, once you are accepted, that's when we start the scholarship process. So don't worry, we offer scholarships and we try to help students as much as we can.
Thank you, Razan. And there's another question: what student research or internship opportunities are available for students, and how can I get involved on them? So as faculty, we often develop collaborations with externals or some of our external design projects, research projects. We usually try to involve our students in those research projects. And of course, sometimes we do collaborations with externals, with industry, with institutions like Palmwood and so on. So it's basically about applying for those research projects. And we also have a formal internship program. So in the third year, we have a formal internship program where our students will be placed in different institutions, design institutions, offices, and so on for a work experience. But even so, some of our students, since the first, second year, they sometimes get some internships. So we have Alhan, who basically went and spoke to a materials lab in the design district where we are, and they gave him an internship, and he worked there during the summer. So we also support when students are driven and go and find their own internships, and we also support that. So there's many opportunities both for research and for collaborations and internships.
Yeah, there's a lot offered to students. Even a lot of companies are asking for graduates or something like that. But because our curriculum is so unique and so different, that we have such a different skill set, and they're asking for us from now, even from when we were in first year, as like us being the only year there, we were asked for internships and to work with companies, even though we were still brand new. We were there for about like a month or two. So you'll have a lot of opportunities.
I just want to also add a point about our campus. So us being situated in an area called Dubai Design District, we're in a very unique situation where it's actually a university in the middle of the design industry in the UAE. So what Dubai Design District is, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's a place where all the designers meet. Majority of the design headquarters of big companies are situated there, and we are lucky to be the only university there. So we interact with designers every day, whether it's through just walking around D3, whether it's through events, collaborations that happen just because we're all there at the same place. So it's a really beautiful space. And it also has the traditional campus aspects in the sense of there's an area called the Block, which is the outdoor recreational facility in D3. So there's like basketball courts, skate park, volleyball courts, and all of that. And there's a nice rock climbing wall as well. So you still have that campus aspect to it, despite it being a very urban setting, which is really cool.
And also there's a lot of...
And maybe Noor, you can talk about.
Yeah. There's a lot of things happening in D3, like they plan it for themselves, and they do a lot of events. That's the word I was looking for. They do a lot of events, and we always like go and attend them or see what's happening. A while ago, like last year, they had a movie night that was between the parkings that a bunch of us went to. They have a lot of pop-ups coming up, and we always attend that, and we practically live on campus. It's our parents that are like, please come home, you have a home, you know, you have somewhere to live, stop staying there. But yeah.
Yeah, even when the weather is good, I've seen D3 do outdoor music sessions. So they'll bring local artists who will do small concerts for free. And then there's also big festivals that happen as well, such as Seoul DXB, which is like the premier streetwear and music festival that happens in the UAE, and that happens right at our campus, so which is pretty cool. Any more questions?
So how's your weekend?
Honey, you're on
Honey,
mute.
you're mute.
You're still on mute. No, you.
Maybe we can hear from Arnav a bit, because he's the vice president of the current student council. Arnav, not to put you on the spot, but since you're here,
yeah,
it would be great for them to hear from you as well.
So about the campus, I don't know if I should say this, but a few of us, I mean, Zaina and Muhammad and I, we spent almost overnight at campus, completing our work that we procrastinated almost all semester. We ordered pizza. I mean, it gets really awesome to spend time at college. It's a really fun environment to work in. We have a ping pong table. We take breaks. I mean, we play with professors. I know Carlos and I had like a ping pong match, and he beat me completely at it. But it's fun, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And to add to Arnav's point, because our students are there all the time, security is a major priority for us, and D3 is very safe. So access to campus is very limited to only people with access cards, so like our students and the staff and the faculty. There's security 24/7, so our students are never worried about being on campus at any point of time.
Mm-hmm. And for international students, actually Dubai is a very safe place, a very safe city, and the UAE compared to other cities in the world is very safe. So it's okay to stay there until very, very late, which is very normal culture in design schools, to work until very late. We do have to make our prototypes, and usually we need the machines and so on. So it is very normal, but it's very, very safe. That's a good point.
I see there's a question about commuting and accommodation to DIDI. So Dubai Design District is very centrally located in Dubai. It's not that far from anywhere that you choose to stay. If a student chooses to stay in the students are only 10 to 20 minutes away, and they have the transportation to and from campus. A lot of our students stay close by. Some even stay in further areas like Dubai Marina and JBR. So it really depends on where you are. But Dubai is very connected, so you wouldn't have an issue getting to campus no matter where you are. So it really depends on your preference and where you'd like to stay.
And also, you can use the metro from whichever area you're living in, and then there's a bus that comes straight to D3 as well. Oh, and there's a question about part-time jobs for students. Do you mean in the university or out of the university when you say part-time jobs?
So part-time jobs in the university, right now we don't have any. However, as we grow and if we see that there's a need, there's definitely going to be, we're going to definitely tap into our student resources, because they are the best representatives of the university and they are the most talented constituents that we have. So yes, definitely. In terms of outside of the university, D3 offers a lot of, again, internships for students. A lot of them are paid. There are many opportunities, and especially for our students, they are in high demand because of what we teach and what they know. So there's always opportunities. So there's a careers department through student services that Noura can help you with, and we try to see what's the best fit for you. Any more questions?
I'd just like to add to what you said, Razan, because we're a new university and we pride ourselves on listening to students, and Noor and Arnav, as our student reps today, can confirm this. We do listen. So we do many sessions of feedback from the students. We try to hear them, to understand, to keep improving. We're totally new. So if, as Razan said, if there is a need for part-time jobs, that's something we would definitely push forward. So please know that we are always listening. Arnav, Noor, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, the university, they do listen to us quite a bit. I mean, anything that we need, if we need an extra deadline and if everyone agrees that we are stressed and we need some more time to finish our work, then unanimously, if we tell them that, yes, look, we're struggling, we need help. So they will understand our situation and they'll push it a bit more and give us some time, give us some breathing space. They understand our situation. They're very understanding with that. Even for during the corona situation, they know how stressful this can be, online work, and because it's a design course, we have to make prototypes with whatever we have at home. They're very understanding of what our situation is. So I think they're being pretty lenient with us and pushing the deadlines quite a bit. Like for Hani's final, we got almost a month to finish it. So yeah, I agree with everything that Hani said.
And I have one point just to add with regards to part-time jobs. We have two students. One of them is Waleed, who's currently doing a part-time job while still studying at the DIDI. We do not mind it at all, as long as it does not interfere with your coursework or your study or anything. So we send out all the opportunities we get for whether it was internships or part-time works or anything. And it's based on the student to see if they're able to juggle both a part-time job plus university work.
Yes, that's a good point, Noura. And we have students that have part-time jobs or even sometimes almost like full-time jobs outside. We have students that are heavily involved in their family businesses, and we understand that and we actually promote that. So we try to support our students that work as much as possible.
Yeah. There's a question about the class size. It depends on the class, the answer from Noor, but also, yeah, so we have maximum capacity for studio is 17 currently, but we haven't not reached that number yet. So I would say typical studio section is around 10 to 12, and in the second year actually shrinks because you get distributed across the different disciplines. So with a lecture, for some lectures, it's the entire class in the lecture, so 30 to 40. But in the studios and workshops, we're looking at about 10 per class at the moment. So I would say 10 is a good number to say at the moment.
And Ani, what about class timings?
Class time, well, the best thing to do is to share the calendar. Definitely in Ramadan, we have reduced hours and we have classes that start at 11 and we end by 3 to make sure that we respect the hours of the need for rest during Ramadan. Otherwise, classes begin at 8:30 and they end around 5:30, but of course, not every day, depends on your schedule. You take a studio workshop and 2 lectures. So basically, some days you may not have classes. We usually try not to have classes on Thursdays so we can have events and activities as a school. At the same time, so for Thursday, for instance, you may not have classes, and maybe let's say for Sunday you might have 2 classes, and Monday you might have 1 class. So it depends on your schedule. but the school classes are open from 8:30 till 5:30 every day. Let me dig up the calendar and I'll show you.
There were two questions. One about if we have other courses other than the bachelor plan, and also if there are summer courses.
Yeah, well, it's not official yet. However, we are planning summer courses this year. This would be the first time we'll be doing it. And the purpose is to actually reduce the load in the fall if we have to. And for those who want to catch up from previous years, they can take those courses so they come in and be all caught up with the rest of the group. So that was, are they graded? If they are in, they fall under the COVID rules at DIDI, students have a choice to take pass-fail. However, we as faculty have to continue to grade them for purposes of keeping track of the learning outcomes. So, however, if you choose to go pass-fail, you can choose that. There'll be no penalty. It will not reflect on your grade sheet at all, if that's your choice. I'm looking for a calendar now.
Yeah, the other question was, what other courses do you have other than the 4-year bachelor plan?
We don't have other courses except what we offer, but some of the courses are what we call Gen Ed, general education. So they're not design related. They are related to other fields. However, we have catered them to design students. So the way we will be learning math is not like a math school. It'll be taught as a way that designers think about math. So there'll be a lot of things related to visual thinking. And yes, Arnav said that all our classes are online, yes.
We still have access to the lab where we can print remotely, and we have the help of the lab manager and lab assistant, Simona and Haik, to get everything done. And we can go there to pick up whatever we printed, but everything's online.
There's a question, what's the average years? You already
4 years, yeah.
answered it, Nouri. Yep.
Yeah, let me share now I have the calendar that we were using up to recently. So here we go. So here you can see a weekly calendar. It was from March 22 to April 3. We have the studio. So if you are a first-year student, you'll be taking studio in the morning and followed by design strategies course. On Monday, you have the workshop, the design strategies course, and the design futures. And here you will see that what we did, we placed design strategies every day to try and finish the course online so the students can focus on the studio and workshop later. So here in this case, we had moved classes to Thursday, so we try and finish early for the first year students, so you finish by 3 p.m. every day. So this was a case for the pandemic situation, and I'm going to show you what a regular course would be in case of irregular time. So just give me a second while I look for that calendar. Hold on, it's coming up. So this was the, let me see which one do I want to show you. The spring semester. Let me see. Can you see this now in your one?
No.
No.
No,
Okay,
it's still the same view.
Okay, let me just change the sharing on this. Okay. I want you to see this one. Okay. Share. So you can see now the, oh, this is again distance learning. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, let me open one more. Just bear with me. Spring.
So while Hani is looking for the schedule, we have an interesting question from Alvaro. He's asking, can students develop personal projects outside classes at the Fab Lab?
I mean, we do.
Carlos, maybe you have an answer to this?
Yeah, well, I mean, the priority, of course, is the projects for the university. But if there's a project that is meaningful, tied to a research project as part of a startup or so on, yes, you could develop it in the Fab Lab.
As long as it doesn't interfere with the university projects or with anyone else's
and with other students, exactly.
Yeah, work, then. So finals is not a good time to start personal projects.
Yeah. Sheikh is asking if someone has an AP degree, which I'm assuming is an American, does it affect the average of years? We don't accept AP credits as a transfer. Our curriculum is a bit unique, wherein everyone goes through the same 4 years and it's a defined track. Maybe Carlos and Hani can speak more about it. However, we do consider it for admission purposes. So we do look at it as a more advanced degree, and all the hard work you put in gets considered for admissions.
Okay. Can you see my screen? This might be, yeah, where it says weekly schedule. Can you see me moving my mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So if you look at Sunday, you will have section A in a workshop. It's only once a week. So you might be in section A or section B or section C. So let's say you took section A and you took this course, section A, and this course. So you'll have a full day on Sunday. And on Monday, you'll just have the morning and you have the afternoon free. And then you have Tuesday morning free, and then you take the lectures again in the afternoon. And then Wednesday, you will have the morning studio. And then if you are in section B in the futures course, it'll be here. So it's either this or that one. And if you notice Thursday, there are no classes whatsoever. So you will have a full day on Sunday, free on Monday afternoon, free on Tuesday morning, and then depending on which section you might have Wednesday afternoon free, and then Thursday all day free. And this is typical for a student in first year in the spring. So I hope this helps for you to see. And the colors represent the different disciplines. So this combines all the classes that we offer.
All right, we're running out of time, so let's answer one last question. It's from Aisha. She's asking, can we do internships in our home country?
Yeah, of course you can.
All righty, cool. So any last words? Anything else you'd like to talk about before we sign off?
Big thank you for Charmaine for being here, and the students, Carlos and Razan and all the team, Nora and Aisha and others.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you everyone. Hope this was beneficial. If anyone has further questions, you can reach out to me. I'm typing my email in the chat box right now. You can email me there and we'll direct you to the right people if I can't answer your question. All righty.
Thank
So
you.
thank you, everyone.
Okay,
For those of you in
everybody.
UAE, hope you have a wonderful
Bye.
Isfaq. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.